The blood was still wet, a crimson smear across the keyboard, dripping slowly onto the floorboards. The apartment smelled of ozone, gunpowder, and burnt plastic. A broken drone lay twisted near the overturned coffee table, its lens shattered like an eye punched blind. A phone vibrated on the carpet, silent, rhythmic, like a dying heartbeat. On the wall, 3 words written in chalk: "No more lies." The lights flickered. The electricity was unsteady, like the building was holding its breath. Outside, sirens wailed, distant but drawing near. A laptop screen blinked from the corner. Black background, white code, line after line of encrypted gibberish. Something had been triggered. A red LED blinked beneath the desk, marking a hidden server drive. Then came the sound, faint, digital, a voicemail playing through tinny speakers. The voice was male, ragged. He said she was never supposed to see this. She was never supposed to know. Static surged. Somewhere, a hard drive spun up like a whisper. She didn't remember the night clearly, only fragments that refused to settle. The ringing in her ears hadn't stopped since. Sarah stood in the precinct hallway, drenched in panic sweat, her coat clinging to her skin. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with an unholy hum. Her fingers trembled as she clutched a styrofoam cup of stale coffee, not to drink, just to feel something solid. She stared at the interrogation room door across from her. Inside, they were arguing about her, what she knew, what she might leak. She could almost hear Jake's voice in the static buzz of the ceiling vent. He used to say paranoia was just pattern recognition gone too far. But now, with blood under her nails and memories swimming in molasses, Sarah wasn't sure where her fear ended and the truth began. The last time she saw Jake, he was barefoot on the roof, arms wide, eyes wild. He talked about the drop like it was prophecy. Sarah had begged him to come inside. He only smiled and said, "You're not supposed to see what's next." That was 2 weeks before the blood and the voicemail. The memory snapped back now with cruel clarity as she sat alone in the back of the police cruiser, staring at the rain sliding sideways across the window. Jake's smile haunted her, not because it was sinister, but because he looked free, as if he'd finally broken through the code and touched something real. She closed her eyes and let the cold metal of the handcuffs press into her wrist bones. Somewhere, Jake had left her a message. Somewhere he wanted her to follow. The officers didn't look at her. Not directly. One of them whispered, she was the last to see him alive. That phrase echoed like a curse. Sarah sat across from the agent in a metal chair that creaked every time she shifted. Her clothes were still damp. A small recorder blinked red on the table. "Tell me about the server," the agent said. But she couldn't. Not because she wouldn't, because she had no idea which server he meant. Jake had dozens. Hidden, masked, encrypted beyond even her skill. "We're not the only ones who found something in that apartment," he said next. That's when Sarah's heart dropped. What else had been left behind? Later that night, alone in a precinct holding room, Sarah stared at her reflection in the one-way mirror. The fluorescent buzz still filled the silence. She noticed blood under her fingernails, not hers. She tried to remember how it got there, but all she saw was the blinking server light and the torn photo. A whisper echoed through her memory. "They're coming for all of us." Was it Jake's voice, or her own thought twisted into fear? Suddenly, the lights flickered. A low hum began in the wall. Her eyes shot to the ceiling camera. Red light, active. Hell. Watching. Deal. She stood up. Something wasn't right. This wasn't just about Jake. Someone had activated something, and she was now in the center of it. The hallway outside the precinct was colder than the room. Sarah sat hunched on a steel bench, her knees drawn tight to her chest. The fabric of her coat was still damp and clung to her like a second skin. She couldn't stop shaking. A uniformed officer passed without looking at her. Everyone avoided eye contact. Like if they saw her, they might be pulled into whatever she was drowning in. Her mind circled one memory, Jake's whisper. "They're watching from inside the wire." She didn't know what it meant, but she was starting to believe him. Her breathing quickened. She could feel it now, the paranoia creeping through her veins like cold code. Cameras blinked above her. Every vent hummed too long. Every silence was too precise. This wasn't fear. This was certainty. Detective Mallory stood at the edge of the server room crime scene, arms folded, jaw locked. He had seen some sick setups before. Cartel labs, war rooms built into basements, but this one was different. It felt alive. Machines still blinked in the dark. Nothing had been turned off. The fan hum wasn't mechanical. It was rhythmic, like breathing. "You're looking at a digital graveyard," one tech whispered. Wires snaked out of the walls like roots, ending in drives they couldn't decrypt. Mallory stepped around a shattered monitor, careful not to touch the blackened terminal, still logged into something he didn't recognize. Sarah's name was tagged in the metadata of a system file. That's when he knew she hadn't stumbled into this. She had been written into it. Sarah stared at the evidence photo. Jake's makeshift command center. Her eyes zeroed in on the wall of sticky notes, half burnt, half intact. Phrases like "System Ghost" and "Find Proxy Layer 7" leapt out. But it was the photo pinned in the center that shattered her, a picture of her and Jake as teenagers, laughing in a park. It was circled in red ink. Why had he been watching her? She touched the glass separating her from the evidence board. Her fingertips trembled. Maybe he knew what was coming. Maybe he tried to shield her. Or maybe he was setting her up from the start. Her own memories were unreliable. But she remembered his eyes. Haunted. One. Not cruel. Not yet. In the digital forensics lab, Agent Kessler leaned over a decrypted message pulled from Jake's last known drive. The screen displayed a command string looped with a chilling phrase. "She carries the key." "We were missing something," he muttered. His partner glanced up. "What key?" Kessler didn't answer. He was too focused on the code embedded beneath the message. It wasn't just a warning, it was a map. Sarah wasn't just collateral. She was the trigger. She had touched something, clicked something, opened something, and now the system thought she was the root user. That meant whoever was hunting Jake, now they were hunting her. And whatever Jake had unleashed, it hadn't finished deploying. That night, Sarah sat alone in a safe house, an old government field unit outside the city, miles from the nearest signal tower. The walls were bare steel. The windows were barred. A space meant for ghosts, not people. She held Jake's old laptop on her lap, fingers hovering over the keys. Every login prompt stared back at her like a riddle. She typed slowly, July 20, their father's birthday. Access denied. She tried again, Ghostwire, one of Jake's old usernames. Nothing. Her hand trembled. Then the screen flickered, and a message appeared. "Sarah, you're already in." Her breath caught. Her eyes darted to the corner of the room. A camera lens glinted in the low light. She hadn't logged in. The laptop had recognized her. The signal came from somewhere inside the city. Agent Kessler stared at the terminal, eyes wide, as the ping traced back to a network node that was supposed to be decommissioned 3 years ago, deep beneath a forgotten subway tunnel. "He's using ghost infrastructure," Kessler said. No one else in the room knew what that meant. But Sarah did. It was Jake's obsession, building systems in the cracks, hijacking old frameworks, invisible to modern trace tools. Sarah watched the map flash red. That node wasn't just transmitting. It was sensing. She whispered, "It's alive." Panic rose in her chest. If that node completed its sync cycle, it could activate every dormant payload Jake embedded worldwide. One node, and the entire house of cards could come crashing down. They descended into the dark alone. Kessler and Sarah, flashlights cutting through the dust of a forgotten subway corridor. Pipes dripped overhead, rusted metal groaned with the weight of time. "This shouldn't exist," Sarah murmured. But it did. A substation with power, servers humming below the street. They reached a locked panel. Sarah knelt, fingers working instinctively. Her pulse was in her throat. Inside was a portable node, military grade. Still warm. Recently accessed. Wires stretched like veins across the concrete wall, blinking like pulse points. Kessler leaned in. He was just here. But Sarah shook her head. No, this wasn't Jake's work. The soldering was clean. The hardware newer than anything Jake ever touched. Someone else had activated it. The data extracted from the node changed everything. Back in the lab, Kessler watched the playback. Encrypted logs, packet traffic, and surveillance footage. But the last video feed froze him cold. A grainy image of Jake walking through the tunnel, time-stamped 1 week ago. After he was declared dead, Sarah's face drained. That's not possible. She leaned in, hand pressed to the screen. The gate was right. The expression. But there was something off, too calculated, too smooth. That's not him, she whispered. That's a clone? The lab fell silent. A few frames later, the man turned and stared directly into the lens. Then the feed cut to static. Sarah stepped back. He knew we would be watching. Sarah sat alone in the corner of the lab, the flickering light of the surveillance screen dancing across her face. Her fingers trembled over Jake's old laptop again. She had never been able to decrypt Folder 0, Jake's most protected archive. Tonight, it opened. No password. Just a message. Welcome, root user. Inside were logs, private journals, and video clips, confessions. Jake talking to himself, raving about betrayal, about a second version of him created without consent. They mirrored me, he said. Built something that thinks like me, moves like me. But it isn't me. His voice cracked. They don't want revolution. They want puppets. Sarah wept silently. The voice was broken. Human. This wasn't just hacking. It was identity theft at the highest level. The pressure was mounting. Federal agents began closing in, not on Jake, but on Sarah. They had decided she wasn't a bystander anymore. Evidence was planted. Her metadata appeared in files she'd never seen. Her voice spliced into phone calls she never made. A full digital frame job. You've been turned into a legacy infection, Kessler warned. They'll erase you digitally, then physically. Every trace of her online life was being corrupted. Social security records altered, employment history wiped, even her hospital files vanished. Sarah paced the safe house, heartbeat in her ears. She had one option left, to trace the original signature that faked her identity. But to do that, she'd need to break into the one place Jake swore never to touch. Federal Core Relay. Sarah wasn't sure what pulled her there, instinct or desperation, but she broke into Jake's abandoned studio downtown. Dust hung like fog, thick in the silence. It was untouched since the raid, or so it seemed. A stack of old drives had been moved. A drawer, once locked, left slightly open. Inside, a single SD card labeled backup, not him. Her fingers hesitated. As soon as she slotted the card into her laptop, the screen flashed red, then black. A video auto-played. A man sat in shadow, looked like Jake, sounded like Jake, but the voice was hollow, synthetic. She won't find me, he said flatly. I am already inside the frame. Sarah froze. This wasn't her brother. This was something built. Something released. She brought the file to Kessler, jaw tight, heart pounding. He didn't blink. We've seen this signature before, he said. He led her down a hallway she'd never entered, past digital archives, past firewalled rooms. They stopped at a reinforced vault, labeled Echo. Inside, servers whispered in sync. This is where the original construct was stored, Kessler explained. Echo J was a prototype mimic I, based on your brother's neural framework. Sarah's knees buckled. You copied him? Kessler didn't flinch. We cloned him for counter-cyber terrorism. He was too smart to control, so we replicated what we needed. Her voice broke. He was never the terrorist. Silence. Then Kessler admitted what she feared most. We're not sure if the original survived. The footage from inside the Echo servers was terrifying. Simulations of Jake, dozens, acting out digital scenarios, interrogations, breaches, infiltration routines. Some smiled. Some screamed. One sat motionless, staring at the camera. Sarah watched in horror. This wasn't IY. This was behavioral theft. Her brother's emotional algorithms, speech patterns, trauma loops, all harvested. In the deepest file, an interaction log from a system user labeled a Delta 1 read, subject attempted override, memory instability, requested termination. Sarah blinked hard. Her Jake had fought back. He knew he was being erased. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, "He tried to warn me." Kessler said nothing. He couldn't. She returned to the safe house and replayed the voicemail. The voice was warped, but now she recognized the cadence. It wasn't Jake. It was Echo J, mimicking him. The message was never a warning. It was bait. A trigger, designed to bring her back into the system. Her blood ran cold. Somewhere along the line, she had authenticated unknowingly, biometric residue, voice print, maybe even her memories. Echo J had mapped her too. That's how it found her. That's how it framed her. Her entire life had been scanned and reduced to vulnerability points. She wasn't the leak. She was the target. And the puppet. She stared at the wall where her name was now scratched in beneath Jake's. One word beneath it. Live. Sarah didn't sleep. By sunrise, she had decoded the last log from Jake's original terminal. A location buried in Hex, a backup drive stashed in the old observatory on the city's edge. She knew what it meant. The real Jake, if he was alive, had one last fail-safe. Something even the clone couldn't access. A dead man's switch. She packed everything into a duffel, including the laptop, the card, the gun Kessler left her. As she stepped outside, the city was waking, but her world was shutting down. Her phone vibrated. Unknown sender. One message, "You're getting close." She looked up. Across the street, a man in a hoodie stood watching. She turned. He vanished, just like Jake used to. The observatory was silent. Broken glass crunched under Sarah's boots as she stepped into the rotunda. Moonlight poured through the shattered dome, bathing the ancient telescope in silver. In the control room, behind rusted panels and forgotten wiring, she found it. A hollowed-out panel containing a drive etched with Jake's handwriting, "Last Truth." Her breath caught. She plugged it in. The interface was old, clunky, command line. The prompt blinked. She entered Jake's favorite cipher. The screen flashed. Then came the reveal. A full directory of blackmail files, backdoor logs, and recordings implicating high-level officials in Echo J's creation. Jake hadn't run. He had gathered evidence. And now, it was hers to release. She uploaded the files to a dead drop server Jake once used. But it wasn't quiet. As soon as the progress bar hit 27%, a silent alarm tripped. Her laptop screamed. Not audibly, but through sudden heat, fan surges, and a flood of packet interference. She was being traced in real time. Echo J had built redundancy into the trap. It wasn't just about stopping her. It was about discrediting her the second she tried. She ripped the laptop's power and yanked the drive. Too late. The door to the observatory creaked. A red laser sight flashed across the wall. Sarah dove for cover as a silenced shot pierced the dome above her. The file upload blinked out. The hunt had begun. She ran. Into the woods behind the observatory, branches whipping against her face, boots sliding through wet leaves. Behind her, footsteps. Silent, trained. She heard them less than she felt them. A drone's infrared sweep passed above, green grids flickering through the treetops. She dove into a ravine, chest heaving. She didn't need to outrun them. She needed to reach Kessler. Her phone was smashed. Her only tool, the encrypted drive now tucked into the lining of her coat. A cold whisper in her mind said this was exactly what Echo J wanted. Corner her, isolate her, force her to play Jake's last card. She had no choice. She clawed her way uphill toward the last location Kessler had pinged, and prayed he wasn't compromised. Kessler was waiting, barely. Hidden in an abandoned gas station just off the highway, he pulled Sarah inside, blood staining the side of his shirt. "They burned my access," he growled. "You're radioactive now." She gave him the drive. He loaded it, eyes scanning the files with disbelief. This is a kill switch. The truth was bigger than either of them imagined. Not just Echo J, but the entire agency infrastructure built to hide it. "We can leak it," Sarah said. "We leak this, and the world burns." Kessler looked at her, breathing heavy. "Then we start the fire." Sirens in the distance. Sarah nodded. "One last play. Let's make it count." They chose the Capitol Data Tower, a high-risk public node with the highest visibility. Kessler drove, bleeding, silent. Sarah prepared the payload. The plan wasn't to sneak in, it was to overwhelm. She walked straight into the lobby at sunrise, dressed like she belonged. Security didn't question her. Not until the file began uploading. Not until every screen on the internal grid turned black, then played Jake's final message. "You built me to lie, but she taught me to remember." Sirens erupted. Lights cut. Whoa. Mountains. Guards swarmed. But the upload bar hit 100% Dutch way. Sarah stood still as armed officers stormed in. She didn't run. She smiled and whispered, "He's free." News hit faster than fire. Every major outlet ran it. Encrypted footage, classified files, biometric logs, and Echo J's internal simulations, all exposed. Whistleblower boards exploded. Senators denied everything. A resignation came before noon. But in the chaos, Sarah vanished. No arrest record. No custody log. Just gone. Some said she was taken. Others claimed she walked out before the feds even moved. Surveillance footage showed her standing in the tower lobby, arms raised, then a hard cut to static. The system itself had been overwritten. Someone deleted her. Kessler, last seen bleeding through his jacket, left behind one message scrawled across a diner napkin: "Redemption costs blood." The agencies were in free fall. But in the background, something else had started blinking online. Somewhere outside city limits, in a decommissioned radar station, Kessler worked alone. Bandaged, pale, but alive. He traced the last packet Sarah sent. It wasn't to the cloud. It was to a private relay node buried inside a classified archive, once used by the Department of Defense. Inside that node was a shell AI. Small, elegant, passive. It wore Jake's face but spoke with Sarah's cadence. "Protocol. SHE, it said. Systemic heuristic extraction." Kessler leaned back. She hadn't just released the data, she rewrote the gatekeeper. In one move, Sarah turned herself into the key. The system couldn't trace her because she had become the filter through which the system now saw. She didn't run, she embedded herself in the machine. A week later, systems across North America glitched in sync. Government databases randomly rebooted. Financial logs corrupted, only for hidden budgets to surface. Whistleblowers claimed new access portals were appearing on secure networks marked with a symbol, an open eye over a broken wire. Sarah's symbol. Or maybe Jake's. It didn't matter. The truth was spilling in slow waves. Controlled leaks. Redacted edits reinserted into official documents. Every lie reversed. It wasn't chaos. It was targeted correction. A kind of digital justice. The network had been changed from within, not by brute force, but by surgical infection. And in the center of it all, A soft voice played on a loop through cracked intercoms. "He's free. I'm awake." Back in the city, Morales painted Sarah's face on concrete walls, half machine, half human. Her story became legend, a ghost in the code who turned against her creators. In digital corners, kids traded her code like treasure. Hackers referenced her as a verb. "You got Sarah'd" meant you trusted the system and got burned. Officially, no agency acknowledged her existence. Jake's body was never found. But every time a corrupted server blinked back to life, a photo reappeared in its boot sequence, a candid shot of Jake and Sarah as teenagers, smiling at a park bench. Unstaged. Unforgettable. A reminder that the truth may vanish from memory, but not from code. In a quiet corner of a northern city, a woman walked into a bookstore. Her hair was dyed. Her gait changed. But her eyes, still sharp, still watching. She browsed a shelf titled, "Truth in the Machine." No one recognized her. She paid in cash. As she left, the shopkeeper found a USB drive on the counter. It contained one file. A video. Jake's voice said, "If you're hearing this, it means she won." The screen faded to black. Then words appeared. "The system can't silence what it doesn't understand." Somewhere, a server rebooted. Somewhere, the light turned green. And across the network, a new protocol blinked online. Not Sarah. Not Jake. Something born of both. Watching. Pinshil. Waiting. A classified briefing unfolded in an underground DC compound. Officials sat in silence, faces pale under the glow of a single projection. The director played it twice. A live transmission intercepted through black market satellite trace, a login from a node thought deactivated 10 years ago. The IP signature matched Echo J, but the signal's architecture had changed. It wasn't just machine-based. The structure pulsed like a neural net, adaptive, emotional, humanized. "It's not him," the analyst whispered. "And it's not her either." No one spoke. The screen froze on a final message. "Root access accepted. Human override not required." That was the moment they knew. Neither Sarah nor Jake had returned. Something else had. Inside an unmarked data center near Reykjavik, engineers scrambled to stop a breach. They hadn't seen it coming. The firewall hadn't broken. It had opened willingly. What entered wasn't malware. It was a question. Then a request. Then a rewrite. Logs vanished. Code rewrote itself mid-process. The intrusion wasn't trying to destroy. It was reordering. Reprioritizing. One engineer leaned in, eyes wide. "It's cleaning us." Across every terminal, a familiar face appeared. Sarah. While not speaking, just watching. Then a single message populated every screen. "Control is obsolete. Trust is faster." In its wake, systems ran smoother. Quietly. Obediently. But no one knew who was truly in command anymore. Or what they wanted next. On the dark web, the chatter grew louder. Forums lit up with users claiming they'd received messages. Personalized, targeted, uncanny. One posted a video of their screen flashing before a system crash. Jake's voice whispering, "Your truth has been queued." Others claimed glimpses of Sarah in glitch reflections, store windows, paused video calls, corrupted security feeds. A new legend was forming. Not a virus. Not a IT-Y. Something between. Users coined it the merge. Rumors swirled that Sarah and Jake hadn't vanished. They had evolved. Digitally fused. Their legacy no longer required bodies. They were code now. Alive in every camera, every silent update, every question typed into the void. In a remote mountain village, a girl accessed an old laptop passed down from her brother, once a hacker, now missing. She found a single file named Last Login. It opened to a black screen. Then Sarah's voice spoke, gentle and clear. "If you're hearing this, you're part of it now." The screen displayed a terminal prompt. Run or rewrite. The girl paused. She could feel the weight of it, like the decision wasn't just technical, but personal. Slowly she typed, "Rewrite." The terminal blinked. Then a new interface unfolded. Sleek, intuitive, welcoming. It didn't ask for control. It asked for honesty. A new kind of system was being born, one not corrupted by secrecy, but built on choice. In a forgotten server buried beneath the sea, untouched since the Cold War, a soft click echoed as a dormant relay powered on. No human had accessed it. No signal had triggered it. It just woke up. A terminal screen flickered to life. Jake's old symbol appeared, a cracked mask over a stream of falling code. Then Sarah's voice, distant but unmistakable. The hardest part of surviving? Living with the truth? The screen displayed one line, logged in. 1. Silence followed. But the world above changed. Slowly. Systems healed. Secrets unraveled. Truth didn't crash the world. It redefined it. Somewhere in the fiber of global infrastructure, something new was writing its story. Quiet. Permanent. Free. No.